Almost a week now since President Obama signed the big health care reform into law, and we're seeing a modest but definite bounce in his approval rating. Still, our latest snapshot of what the voters are thinking shows Democrats still have plenty to worry about as we head into the midterm election season. To take the pulse of America, CNN contributor Eric Erickson, who's editor-in-chief of the conservative blog RedState.com. He joins us from Atlanta. And in New York, Amy Goodman, the host and executive producer of Democracy Now!, a daily independent news program. Thank you both. You know, we did a lot of polling over the weekend. It does show the president is a bounce up, and we don't like to hyperventilate too much about polls, especially 7 months before an election, but this one's interesting, and I want each of your opinion because I can't tell if this is a half empty or half full glass. Let me start with you, Amy. We asked people, should we leave the bill as it is? 23% say leave it just like it is. Change it to increase the involvement of government. 27% want to change it to give the government more power. Repeal and replace, 47%. That strike you at all, Amy? Especially a quarter of Americans say, you know, that must be the single payer or the public option crowd saying give the government more power here.
That's right. It's very interesting that more than half of people who are either supportive of the bill or feel it should be changed in favor of more government control. This is saying something that I think polls have shown for a long time. When people have single-payer explained the idea of Medicare for all, they overwhelmingly support it in this country, and that would then put us, well, in line with the rest of the industrialized world. And I think the problem right now, and we just heard it with Secretary Sebelius, is she's already having to deal with these insurance companies that are going to get richer and more powerful under the Obama plan, under Obamacare, trying to wriggle out even now. If they weren't there, if they weren't the middlemen here determining our care, if it was direct from or at least paid for by taxpayers, and overall a single-payer system, we wouldn't have these people profiteering off people's health. And a lot of people feel that way in this country.
Eric, I want you to come in, but I want to break down the numbers just a little bit further as you do, because this is really fascinating. Among those who say repeal and replace, which is your argument, you're a repeal guy. Right. Some conservatives say repeal and replace with something else. 17% of Democrats say repeal and replace. 80% of Republicans say repeal and replace. And significantly in this election year where you're looking for who can win the independent vote, about half of independents, 52%, say repeal and replace. This is just as the president starts to travel quite a bit and make his case. As a conservative on the repeal side, is that about where you expect it to be at this point, or do you think that number would be higher?
No, it's about what I expected, and I'm actually surprised the independents are that high. If I were a Democrat, I'd be a little troubled. I would have been curious if the pollsters would have asked how many people, what the percentage would have been for government to make changes to decrease government involvement as opposed to just repeal and replace. I was kind of surprised that was left out, but I think by and large, looking at the rest of the numbers, the majority of Americans polled are dissatisfied or angry with it. A majority of Americans think it won't help them or will hurt them. These are not good numbers for the Democrats when the strategizing beforehand was a message to Democratic elected officials that if you do this, the public will like it, and we're not seeing that. The bump in the polls for the president hasn't been as large as some people predicted. I think Gallup poll today showed him settling back down again. If I were a swing state Democrat in particular, I'd be a little nervous.
Amy, what's your sense? Forget politics for a minute to the degree we can here. Just in your conversations with friends and family members and colleagues over the past week or so, how many of them really understand what's in this incredibly complicated bill?
Oh, it's very hard to understand, but there is an overarching issue here, and that is the insurance companies get more powerful. Sure, there are mandates. You know, you have to cover every kid now, and pre-existing conditions should not be a reason to drop a child. 2014, it'll be the case for adults as well. These are good things, but it could be part of a plan that doesn't involve in any way trusting these insurance companies. I can't for the life of me understand why this was taken off the table from the beginning, when polls showed that most people in this country were highly suspicious of, very angry at the insurance companies, why the decision was made to preserve them and make them stronger. That's the battle that President Obama will have and the Democrats will have, why they are shoring up. And this goes across the political spectrum, people's concerned. These companies that have proven to be so untrustworthy.
A little sign of the tension still on the left with the president's final product there. Eric, I want to close by asking you a question about the right. As you know, today, the Republican National Committee back in hot water today, looking at its FEC documents. A consultant who worked for the party charged just under $2,000 at what I'll call a racy nightclub out in Los Angeles. And there are a lot of critics. You know, the party chairman, Michael Steele, says he had nothing to do with this, but he has many critics, a lot of whom say, you know, why isn't he better managing the party and its money, and why is he allowing embarrassing stories like this in a year in which the Republicans should have the wind at their back? What do you make of this?
Well, you know, most troubling to me is that the party acted like it had no clue what was going on until after the reporter came back, and turns out the reporter undercounted the amount of money with the Daily Caller. I'm kind of surprised by the blowback from the RNC. There's been some rallying around this afternoon, but now as the facts come out this evening, the Daily Caller, which ran the story, is slowly dragging out more and more facts, and it's worse and worse. This was an after party. This wasn't even the party. You know, someday I hope the RNC can get by a daily news cycle without more bad press for mismanagement of funds.
Eric Erickson, Amy Goodman, thank you both tonight. We'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot.